Hello there. It's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, and we all know what that means. Another riveting episode of Behind Breaking Bond. Thank you so much for joining. This is the first Behind Breaking Bond of the new year, 2023. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
I'm Randy Wallace with Fox 26, and you are?
Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services, Crime Stoppers, and I can tell you unequivocally now, I am looking forward to 2024.
He's holding out hope.
Yeah, and it's like day 2, right?
It didn't take long.
Obviously not.
If you look up pessimism in the dictionary,
There he is. There he is.
Yeah.
Nicole, introduce yourself.
I'm Nicole Kristoff, and I'm the Deputy Director at Crime Stoppers of Houston. And I, unequivocally, is looking forward to a wonderful 2023.
Thank you so much,
Are you?
Nicole. Yeah, I mean, I always.
Equivocally or unequivocally?
Unequivocally.
I'm pretty pissed. I mean, I'm kind of the glass is half full kind of person overall. So yeah, I'm going into it thinking that it's going to be a good year and good things are going to happen.
Let's hope
So don't be a Debbie Downer.
Hey, when you see the things we all see every day, it's
Right.
kind of hard not to be pessimistic.
Yeah.
But that's when you develop the sixth sense of humor that we all have,
Yes.
that we can laugh about it.
We got busted in our gate, didn't we?
What
Yeah.
happened out
I
there?
see you noticed it, didn't you?
Well, Twan did.
What did you say? They got, did you say, oh my God.
Twan said something's happened. What did you
Something's
say?
happened at the gate.
Right.
What happened?
No, Twan said, Andy broke that.
You should do a story on that.
What
I got-
happened? Do you
I got
know?
super mad and I just went out and tore it up.
I mean, the one thing, where you all are located, I mean, you obviously need a gate that closes and not everybody can come in here,
Nicole
right?
will tell you some great war
Oh
stories.
my
on-
God, the
Some of
stories. I have PTSD.
I bet.
I do. But what happened this time was somebody in a rather large Dodge Ram pickup truck. We have the license plate number.
Uh-oh.
Watch out. He just completely backed into the arm that holds the doorbell
Yeah.
for the door and our access control area. Backed into it and annihilated it, as well as his taillight, and he got a nice little scratch all down the side. So we filed. This happened on Christmas Eve at 4:20 something in the morning. So we filed a police report today because it was our first day back. So
Where do you think the driver was coming? They was like out on the street and like is backing
He
in.
wasn't delivering presents, was
he
he?
he was not a jolly
Deliver
looking
something.
fellow. I'll tell you that he was not.
It's not
jolly
Santa.
looking. It was not Santa. There's an establishment next door to us.
Yeah.
And he
You're
was.
being very kind. when you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So he backed from their parking lot and just went across the street up into our, little driveway up to our gate and just clipped it.
Crazy.
Then he pulled forward, got up to Fannin and, which one is that, Rosalie?
Yeah.
Fannin and Rosalie jumped out, checked out the damage, jumped back in and took off.
We're coming for you.
Yeah.
Rick, just a warning.
If you
Turn
know the
yourself in.
identity of
Turn
the
yourself in.
Call Crime Stoppers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if someone did want to call Crime Stoppers.
If someone did want to call Crime Stoppers, they could, 713-222-TIPS. I doubt that it would rise to a felony, this one. Because
Right.
the damage was under 1,500.
What-
It's just
what-
more of a pain in the butt.
What are sort of the parameters, or what should somebody know if they think that they've got information and they want to call you on?
So the number one thing is when it comes to what we call adult or community-based tips, any case that's a felony or where someone has a warrant for felony crime. I think there will be some misdemeanors that we pay for, like animal cruelty, domestic violence. When it comes to campus-based cases, anything that is against the law on a school campus or against the student code of conduct, any of those.
So like if somebody was in high school and they know that another student is selling drugs, they could call?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have to be 18? Do you have to be an adult?
Well, the one thing about Crime Stoppers is tipsters are always 100% anonymous.
That's right, so you don't know.
So I have no way of knowing if they're an adult or not. I do know of one case where it was a rather high reward. We had a supplemental reward, it was $15,000, and we know that the tipster was a juvenile, but that's about as much as we know. And yeah, hopefully she used it towards she or he.
So they would get the money.
Yeah, just like anybody else. Yeah, that's the one thing it's hard to sometimes explain to people when they call or when you're out in the community talking to someone about Crime Stoppers, that there's a difference between confidential and anonymous.
What's the difference?
Confidential is basically I know that you called,
Right.
but I'm not going to share that information with anyone.
Right.
That's confidential informants. Police use them all the time.
Yeah.
They're
Even
individuals that
reporters
are known.
like you occasionally.
Yes, I have.
Your confidential sources.
There he is.
Yes.
Don't tell anybody else.
But anonymous is we don't know. We have no way of knowing. And people get frustrated sometimes. I had this one guy call and he's like, "You mean to tell me if somebody called and said they were going to blow up the White House, you'd have no way of knowing who they are?" And I'm like, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so do you all sort of, I take it that you kind of take a look at you determine if the information seems to be credible before you turn around and call law enforcement and say, "Hey, here's the information of the two."
Exactly. So we have trained investigators that process all of our tips.
Yeah.
They know the types of questions to ask a tipster to get the best information. Like, to me, every suspect's going to be tall because I'm 5 feet.
Right.
Right? I mean, everybody's tall. But they know the types of questions to ask. Do they have weapons in the house? Do they have dogs? Are the dogs vicious?
Yeah.
They know the types of questions. Plus, they have access to all of the super secret police databases.
Yeah.
And they can look at, okay, this is the person the tipster is saying did it. They can pull up their driver's license, and then they can look at like the surveillance video or something and be like, yeah, completely not that person.
I mean, I take it that this must go into a series of calls, right? It's like, I mean, I can't imagine that if I call and I have this pertinent information about where Twan, the wanted killer is, and I just use Twan as an example, he's not a wanted killer, that I know of. I mean, how does that work? Is there going to be more than one?
Well, so usually the process works the way it started back in 1976. It's all done with code numbers.
Yeah.
So you call and say, "Hey, I know who did XYZ crime." They're going to get all the information that they can from you, and they'll ask the appropriate questions. Sometimes it'll be like, "How do you know?"
Yeah.
"I heard him talking about it," or "I saw him post about it," or things like that. And then that leads to other questions that can help get more information. You're given a number that's unique to you, and you're told to hang on to it because we can't talk to you again unless you have that number.
It's from there on out, that number is that's what's going to get you the reward if you get it.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there are people and I'd probably be one of those people that I'd probably call up, "Hey, it's Randy Wallace." I mean, what do you do then if someone says their name?
Well, number one, we don't record it. We don't record phone calls.
Right.
So when we go to enter tip information, that information will not be put in to our tip management software. If we get a web-based tip or a mobile app tip and they say, "Hey, my name's so-and-so and I know you did this," we sanitize that information before it gets relayed to anybody. And is there a chance somebody could remember that Randy Wallace called in on that?
Yeah.
Maybe, but we get thousands of tips a month.
I mean, you all have to kind of, that's the thing that's the most important to you all, because if you were sort of lackadaisical about that, the whole thing would crater, right?
It would. I mean, we get tipsters. I talk to them each month on what we call tipster payday. And sometimes they like to talk, you know,
Yeah.
they just like to tell their story. Like, how did they know? We had one young person, and I say young because they sounded young to
Right,
me.
you don't know.
Of
Yeah.
course, I feel like I'm a dinosaur, but not compared to Andy. But
No, but you know.
I had to get that jab in there.
He's over in dirt.
Right, exactly. But this person got a $50,000 reward, and it for a very serious crime. It was armored car robbery where the driver was killed. And so I told the tipster, I'm like, look, you're probably going to need to get an accountant to help
Sure,
you with
yeah,
this, because
right.
you can't just go put 50 grand in the bank.
Right.
And he's like, what's that? And so I explained, and then he called back like 2 days later, and he was crying, and he's like, I really can leave town. I really can get away from all of this.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you must change people's lives. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, if you look at it, and you know, we have naysayers. They're like, you're just feeding the cradle to prison pipeline, or you're just locking up poor people. You know, we get tips from family members.
Yeah.
I had a tipster tell me that it was their daughter, and they knew that it was the only way they could save her life. That the road she was going down with drugs and hanging out with the wrong people and getting involved in felonies,
Right.
was going to lead to her demise.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that they think, okay, I know this person's already done this. I don't want them to hurt anybody else.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there are people that even though you get money, they're also motivated by, they don't want anybody else to be a victim of this person.
Exactly.
How do you think social media has evolved with people calling in tips?
Good question.
I know.
Well, I think social media plays a big role, like the Takeoff case.
Yeah.
We received hundreds of tips on that case. And most of it was video that had previously been shared with
Right.
the public and aired on TMZ. But it does play a big role. But the important thing you started to talk about was people do it for the money, but also because they remain anonymous and it's the right thing to do. We have a very high percentage of tips rewards that never get picked up.
Where they just, yeah, I could see that. Where, I mean, yeah, some people look at it, I'm doing the right thing. I don't want the money. I just want to know that I'm doing the right thing. And God love those people. I mean,
And they know that they're going to remain anonymous. Nobody's going to know that it was them
Yeah.
who did
Do
it.
they have a certain time frame to pick up? Or
So
do they-
yes, certain decisions could be made if they exceed that time frame, like if the tipster's in jail or in the hospital or something
Yeah.
like that. But generally speaking, they have 6 months.
So how did they physically actually get the money?
I have a super secret back cave.
Super secret, I like.
Super
This
secret.
is-
Super duper
Super
secret.
secret. We enter the cone of silence, and then actually we partner with a local bank, and once a month our board approves all of the cases that are getting paid and the dollar amount for each of those cases.
Yeah,
The rewards vary depending on the type of case.
sure, of course.
That's why we say up to.
Yeah,
Because you're getting multiple tipsters, right?
Exactly.
right. And how does that work? They would split it or
Andy
whatever?
calls and says he did it. I don't know where he's at. You call and say he did it and he's at this location. They're able to charge him based with Andy's information, but
Yeah.
arrest him with yours, and the rewards
It's
split.
split.
Now, if you both provide the same identical information, it's first and best.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's basically the same thing.
exactly. We can't pay 20 people on the same tip.
How does it work with taxes?
We don't know who they are.
Right. And so, and okay, I get the money, you don't know who I am,
No,
and I
I
mean, the
can't-
IRS isn't gonna know
cannot-
unless I tell them,
I
right?
cannot issue you a 1099 on that. The IRS has made a determination that rewards paid that lessen the burden of the state, which I will argue until my dying breath that Crime Stoppers tips lessen the burden on the state,
Of course, yeah.
are not subject to exemption
Taxes, yeah,
taxes.
right.
We did have one tipster that reported hers to, I guess, food stamps or something, and her benefits got cut because it pushed her over.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, she shouldn't have done that,
no, she
right?
shouldn't have, no. And, you know, it stinks, and I mean, obviously, that was way before me, but I felt really bad. But one thing I tell every single tipster on tipster payday, I give them a unique number, and it corresponds with a list that matches these sets of envelopes with the cash in it.
Right.
And I tell them, you go through the drive-through, has to be the drive-through, you don't go in. You give the teller this piece of paper and nothing else. Don't give them your ID. Preferably don't write your information on the
Yeah.
back of a bill.
Right.
It's happened, but you know.
Because all they need is that piece of paper.
All they need is a piece of paper with 3 bits of information.
Now, how do you get the piece of paper to them?
So when you started to ask when you get your code number, we tell you to call back to find out the status of your tip.
Right.
If it was good. That gives law enforcement time to fully investigate the information. And then when you call back and say, hey, I'm tipster 123, did y'all arrest Andy? And they'll pull it up and go, yeah, actually, he's eating a bologna sandwich right now and wearing the Harris County Rolex. So, yeah, you're given then information on that specific bank to go to, another unique code, and the time frame that you need to go pick up your envelope of cash.
So the only place you physically go to is the bank to get the money.
Yeah, and they have 2 months to go get it, and then it goes back until 6 months.
I mean, I'm sure most people aren't going to wait
No.
2 months. They're going to go get it.
People that pick up their rewards usually pick up within that week.
Yeah.
Kind of like winning the lottery. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
cash in that ticket.
Exactly.
I mean, it's going to make you all feel good that,
Yeah.
I mean, you're giving money to people that have done something good.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, they've done a really good thing and you're rewarding them for it.
100%. And we get a lot of tipsters will ask, do you know how much I'm getting? We're not allowed to tell tipsters, I'm sorry, anybody that's watching this right now. I like to do what's called managing expectations.
Yeah.
So I'll say, oh, this case was XYZ. That reward's usually this much, but your case was pretty bad, so it's probably bumped up.
Yeah.
And I usually go 500 to 1,000 less than what they would normally.
So you're not going to know exactly how much money you're going to get until you go to the bank and you open the envelope.
And I've had tipsters, thank you so much, God bless you, I can buy diapers,
Yeah.
This time of year, we had during Thanksgiving, I mean, I'm really gonna be able to buy Thanksgiving dinner now.
Right.
And you're like, dang.
What's the largest tip we've ever given out?
The largest reward that we've ever paid out was $100K
Wow.
on the,
So the grotto tip?
yeah.
Now, when you have these huge amounts of money, it's because other
Other people.
entities are coming to you and saying, we're going to throw in 25 grand or we're going to,
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. We call that a supplemental reward. Crime Stoppers as an organization doesn't have the ability to arbitrarily increase or decrease the
Right.
reward.
It's 5,000 max for you
Up
all.
to 5 max
Yeah.
for us. And it's weighted based on the type of case. We feel as an organization that each case weighs the same. One murder should not be less than another.
Right.
Or one robbery should not be less than another. But there are cases that tug at the community, and they may have family and friends or businesses and that sort of thing that want to chip in to increase the
And you
reward.
see that quite a bit.
We
where
do,
people,
we do.
yeah.
100% of that money gets paid to the tipster along with the standard Crime Stoppers reward.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's just extra money that they're going to get.
Yep, absolutely. So normally if they were going to get 2,500 and the reward was up to 10, they would get the full 10. Usually we match up.
What's it like for you doing it? I mean, you're dealing with these people pretty much on a daily basis. What's it like for you?
I think it's like a different brand of social work.
Yeah.
You know, I came from social work. I worked for CPS for 11 years before I came here. And I thought Crime Stoppers was going to be too punitive for me.
Yeah.
But you just talk to the tipsters and you know that, like the one who called on their daughter to save her life, students that got off of the wrong track because a tip was called in on them. We had a case where 3 students had done something. Tip came in on one of them. He got probation, never got in trouble again. The other 2 students, and they were not juveniles, so that's how we are able to tell.
Sure.
The other 2 students got away, basically didn't get any punishment, but their record is super long. The student that we got the tip on turned his life around. He started making better choices. That's a different brand of social work.
Right.
When you're able to look at a case and know that this murder case that's gone unsolved for so long, or this family that you've just connected with because of their loss, and when we solve it, you're like, dang.
That's a great feeling.
I was going to say, you deal with that a lot too. Yeah, and obviously the loved one doesn't come back, but it's got to be, I'm sure it must feel like a weight is lifted in a way that at least you're kind of getting to the truth of what happened.
The boogeyman's not still out
It's
there.
an organization that helps those who normally don't get help when they're thrust into this victim role out here. So at least they know at Crime Stoppers that people are looking out for their well-being.
And I'm sure there are people too. I mean, anytime you know these things, I'm calling you anonymously. I'm sure there are people that it's kind of, cathartic or whatever. I'm gonna, you don't know who I am, so I can tell you all kinds of stuff.
I have no fear. There's nothing for me to worry about that somebody's gonna know that it was me. And for sure, we get tipsters that try to muffle their voice when they're calling in.
And they don't need to do that.
They don't need to do that. We don't record phone calls, as I said. We don't have caller ID. The mobile app and website IP information is scrubbed before it gets to us.
Yeah.
So we literally have no way of knowing that citizen one called.
Well, it's like with my job over the years, people will call up and they, can I tell you that, and then they get all worried about it. I'm like, look, if I let people's name out there, I wouldn't have job anymore. I wouldn't have people coming to me if I said their name or,
And if we did, if the whole thing dies.
Right.
The minute a tipster's anonymity is breached, the whole thing dies. So there are multiple factors put in place that prevent us from ever being able to capture that information.
Right.
Because that's it. That's the end. And you think 36,000 cases that we've helped solve? That's over 36,000 victims that have resolution.
Well, yesterday, HPD announced that their homicide clearance rate was, I think, the best it's been in maybe 2 or 3 years. I'm sure people calling Crime Stoppers played a part in that.
Well, we would love to say it's us. Obviously. I mean, we do. We get a lot of tips on homicides.
Yeah.
We get a ton. But I think also it also goes down to we've got some good law enforcement here.
Yeah.
And they work hard.
Yes.
You got to give credit where credit's due.
And you got to wonder too about why people commit crimes, because we live in a society where there's cameras just about everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the idea of being somewhere all alone. I mean, unless you're way out, in the woods, more than likely.
You're on camera.
Yeah.
Like, don't drive and pick your nose because that's on camera.
Right, yeah.
Don't pull the wedgie out of your pants when you're walking into Walmart because that's on camera.
Yeah, and,
Don't bash into the Crime Stop.
Don't.
Gates. That's on camera.
right.
Because I happen to have.
And we're coming for you.
And get you $1,500.
Hey, that was very interesting, and I mean,
Yeah.
every time I talk to you about this stuff, I always learn something.
Well, good.
You know, the whole thing about the taxes. I mean, I had
Yeah.
no idea
Yeah.
because when you said, because I'm thinking, if I got a Crime Stoppers reward, why it's anonymous? Why am I going to tell the IRS? You can't tell the IRS because you don't know who it is.
I have no way
So-
of telling you. And there's a lot of sites that get worried about it, and politics obviously play a role in us being able to continue that way.
Right.
But we've been very fortunate that the laws that
Right.
are on the books are supportive of Crime Stoppers organizations because we're doing it for the public safety.
Right. And if you want to look at it from a monetary standpoint, yeah, I mean, if you're catching people that are robbing banks, that's going to be more beneficial to Texas or to society than
Absolutely.
me having to pay 10% of the Crime Stoppers reward to the IRS.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I love my job. I love talking about it. So
Do you love your job?
I do now. I'm looking forward to my job in 2024.
Wait a minute.
Hold it.
Before, okay, 15 minutes ago, I want
I'm
this year to be over.
90% certain. I know who signed your check.
But no, you,
You love your job,
Yeah.
Ron.
I embrace everything about it. I am either loved or despised. That's
but
the
you know,
beauty of it.
that is so, it's the same with me.
Yeah.
You spend 33 years on TV and you're loved and you're hated.
Right.
And there are people that just think the world of me, and there are other people that just, they hate the ground I walk on. But it's like, that's what, it comes with the
My
territory.
mantra has always been, if you advocate on behalf of one faction, you will generally infuriate the
Yeah.
other faction.
Right,
And that just comes with the territory.
yeah.
And
yeah,
at the
it
end of the
does.
day, what do we do it for? The victims.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't care. You don't like me? Cool.
right,
Guess what? I don't know you. What you think about me is none of my business.
right,
The
yeah,
victims that I work with and that I have relationships with like me.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, and I know you too, when you look back on your career, I'm assuming that what stands out the most are the people that you know that you've helped, that you've made a difference in their life.
A lot of the family members who lost loved ones on homicide basically become part of your extended family
Yeah.
as well. And there's people that, they're near and dear to my heart.
Right.
I'll be at an execution next week because the grandfather of the victim who passed away asked me, he said, I want you there.
And he was a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Lex, I'll never, he goes, if I'm not going to be there, Lex was quite a character.
He was, yes.
Well, no, and he didn't say he said when that bleep, 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 he goes, if I'm not around, you will be there.
Well, and he's talking about, for people that haven't been around since the beginning of time like we have, Robert Fratta, he was a Missouri City police officer?
He was a peace officer. They had a hybrid in Missouri City. They don't have it anymore, where you worked both as a peace officer and as a firefighter.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And he was, the guy looked like a movie star, right? I mean, very handsome guy, had a beautiful, beautiful wife, and he brutally murdered her.
He actually hired.
That's right, he hired somebody, yes,
For hire.
yes.
And those two are still on death row.
Yeah.
So you had three people ultimately that were convicted
Right.
in the murder of Farah. And the children were 7, 6, and 4.
Yeah, yeah, they
That
had
was
3 kids.
1994.
Yeah.
I still remember that case.
Well, and
I was only 5 back. I'm kidding.
it was a big,
Yeah,
it
that's-
grabbed a
It
big
became
headline.
not just local, not just national, but international, because you had an A&E segment. You
Yeah,
had another one of the crime shows, You have a book written about it.
Yeah.
And if you pull up his name right now, there are all sorts of things that are being.
And the husband's the one that's getting all sparky?
Yeah.
Yep.
Front.
Yep.
And I mean, you figure, how long has it taken?
1994, he was originally charged. In
Yeah.
96, he was convicted, and then there was a retrial because he
Yeah.
got overturned.
Right.
And in 2009, he was convicted again and put on death row, but everything starts fresh.
Right.
So the time that he served the 13 years basically gets wiped off. So basically since 2009, it'll happen. It'll be quite the spectacle, assuming that this does
Yeah.
go off.
And I mean, right now, it looks like, I mean, you would think he would have exhausted all his appeals at this point, right?
And I
You never know, I know.
I never say until, I've actually been up there one time at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
They yanked the plug.
Yeah.
On that. That was the worst feeling in the world to be with a family.
I could
when
not
that
imagine.
happened.
Yeah.
That was
I could-
not a very,
Because the emotional,
it was.
what that family's going through leading up to.
Right.
Ooh.
It's like the moment finally is going to
Right.
happen.
Have you been to execution?
Yeah. Yes. I've witnessed 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know. I mean, people are like, "Ooh, how do you watch someone die like that?" I just think about what they did,
Mhm.
and it's not,
I tell people this will be the 9th one that I've been with victims' families, and I tell people it's a very somber,
it is.
emotionally draining day. It's not some quote festive party.
Right.
It's like time stops. You remember exactly why you're here. In many cases, decades later.
Mhm.
And the 2 times I did it, they separated. It's like you've got the inmate's family, where you're not together. You're kind of like separated.
Well, that was one of probably the most fascinating bills that we got passed, and that was 1996. Because prior to that, victims' families were specifically prohibited by policy. They, along with other inmates, were the only categories of people not allowed to attend an execution. And that all stemmed from a local case, the Ertman Pena case.
Yeah.
All that changed because Randy Ertman, the father, asked me in the hallway if he could be there when they execute these guys. And he didn't say it so nicely or
Right.
politely. And so, and all because of that one question that began the quest for change.
Right.
And they're on a gurney, and there's a microphone.
It's not like TV. It's
No,
not
not at all.
It's not like you're watching the Green Mile.
Right.
And they're marching somebody in. No, when you walk in the chamber, they're already.
Yeah, they're
But
there.
they do have an opportunity to make a last statement.
Yeah, I remember they had a microphone there, and then you can have a minister, a priest. I
You
mean,
can now.
yeah, any kind of religious figure you want to be there, and it's like they go to sleep pretty much.
You do a lot of pet stories, dogs
Yeah.
in particular, and I don't mean to demean, it's kind of like going to a vet in a way.
Right.
It is, yeah,
It's very technical and it's very clinical.
right,
Right.
yeah, and anyone, and it's heart-wrenching to do, but when it's time for your beloved dog or cat, if they have to be put down, be there with them. They know that you're there. You take their little paw and you stick with them. That's very, very important to do. Am I right?
You are spot on, man. That's the best thing you said in 30-some years.
Why do I talk to you?
Speaking of 30 years, we have,
Randy, we need to
I'm
talk.
gonna call
You
life
need
numbers just to
therapy.
ask people,
Yes.
why do I talk?
You need therapy.
You Andy, come on.
Anonymous,
Mhm.
the 12-step program in it. So
Exactly.
tonight, we have, let's see, if we put, let's just put.
Not enough.
Put your hands,
Still not
there's
enough.
still not enough.
Yeah, that's
What?
how many bonds.
Oh,
This is a tease, this is
Right.
a tease,
Oh,
because I'm
okay.
not telling you how many,
10?
but it's more than all these hands combined.
That's
What
right.
if we throw, I'm not taking off my shoes. Throw toes in?
Maybe then.
Maybe?
But we
Okay,
can't say
okay.
for sure.
Yes, so,
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah,
those.
that one's, ooh.
Yes, it's a breaking bond. You're not going to want to miss because you're going to scratch your head and say, "What? He had how many bonds?" Hey, be sure to tune in tonight, Fox 26 News at 9 for the Breaking Bond segment. Thank you so much for joining us, and hey, have a prosperous 2024.
Absolutely.
you said 24, that's good.
No, it's 23.
Yes.
You started it, 2023.